Hello beer tubers, welcome to another beer review with me, Peter, the master of hobbits. Today, doing a Throwback Thursday, walking down memory lane, sitting outside enjoying the last rays of sunlight here in nice Gudumholm, where I live now. Not in Aalborg, Gudumholm, outside of the city, about a 20-minute drive. All you guys know about all these things, getting the house and everything. And today is the Eve of Sankt Hans in Denmark. The St. John? No? I can't remember what the English translation is. But it's a kind of like Guy Fawkes night in the UK with bonfires and everything. So and it's a midsummer celebration, really. So it's really a pagan tradition, but now it's got the name of Saint Hans. But we have a big bonfire, and usually there's a witch on top of the fire, and you burn the bonfire with the witch. And the witch is just like a homemade witch made of pillows and stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Then you burn it and you say it flies to Blocksberg, which is in Germany, I think, or something. I can't remember how the whole superstition about it is. But it's very fitting that I drink this beer because it's from a brewery called Wychwood, and revisit this one. So I thought this would be fun to try because I was recently in Germany. I haven't seen this brewery around in a while. It's been sporadically available, but I haven't seen anything in a while, and they had like 3 different bottles, and I was like, hey, let's try some Wychwood. So we're gonna start off revisiting the famous Wychwood Hobgoblin Ruby beer that they call a legendary Ruby beer. The artwork, the bottle style is the same, I think. It seems very similar as to the past, but the label, everything, like just looks very, very different to what it did. They still have the goblin on the label. He's just blue now. The beer is lower in strength. It's 5% instead of 5.2. And they call it a ruby beer. I think they've always kind of played on this ruby thing with this. But online it's been weird with classifications with this beer because it's been classified as a brown ale and a ESB and bitter and whatever. So I think we're going to go with what the brewery says and say ruby beer. UK's #1 ruby beer even. So what is interesting with this is that this might be one of the last time I get to try a Wychwood brewed version of this beer, because this brewery, Wychwood, was once independent. It's from the 80s. I think it's like 83 or something. It's very close to a place in England called Wychwood, which is an ancient woods, and the brewery was named after that. It was it's on a site that was originally a malt miller, I think, and then a brewery, and then it became Wychwood, something like that. And they had a very, very different marketing compared to a lot of other classic British beer producers. They were very abrasive. They were almost like the early Brewdogs before Brewdog. One of the big slogans was the Hobgoblin standing with a pint of his beer. This is even, by the way, a Hobgoblin glass I saved from back in the day. One of my old beer glasses I still have with the old logo, although it's really washed away. But then the goblin standing there with his ruby beer. It's like, what's the matter, lager boy? Afraid you might taste something? And they were like very forward and aggressive with the marketing, which was quite ahead of their time, I guess. And then Brewdog did a copy of that, mixed with also, of course, Stone's aggressive marketing. Yeah, so that was a brewery that was really intriguing to me because of all the, mainly actually in the beginning, artwork, because it was all these witches and ghouls and goblins and things like that. I thought it was really cool because I'm a geek. So I thought it was fun that they did that. And I was really into British beer in the beginning when I was like, British beer was what got me into beer. And so seeing all this coupled with a British brewery, I was like, man, this is something I need to try. And then turned out the beers were also pretty damn tasty as well. I think I've reviewed quite a good handful of Wychwood Brewery beer on the channel that you can look up. Very, very old videos with me not knowing much about beer, but just enjoying them. But they've changed things a lot. And the brewery is now closed when you watch this. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just a brand under the Marston's portfolio. Marston did a merger with Carlsberg last year in 23, and during that merger there was a lot of things discussed and whatnot, and there was a lot of breweries being closed, and one of them was Wychwood, stating that they had to close it because of the ever-growing, more challenging real ale market or something like that. So they closed the brewery. I think there was only 6 employees left at the brewery when they closed it. So now I might have one of the last brewed bottles of Wychwood brewed beer, because what you can get now is brewed as probably some other Marston's brewery. And the reason why I think so is because it was closed in November, and it says that this was packaged in October. So at least that's my guess, because it has a best before date of the 31st of October, and most beers like this gets a year best by. So I'm pretty sure that this beer is not going to be what I remember, and I'm pretty sure it's been changed over the years. The ABV is lower, and I remember having the canned version a few years ago, which is even lower strength, and I was like, wow, this is just terrible. And also the gold, where it's like, what? This is like drinking macro lager, not a golden ale. There was no yeast character. I was so disappointed, and people were like, you just need to try the bottled version. It's still good, man. It's still good. And I never got around to it until now, where it's definitely changed. So the thing that they still talk about and how it's a beer with chocolate and crystal malts, and they use Fuggles and Styrian Golding hops for aroma. I'm just trying to peel some of this return sticker here back from Germany. They have to put these things on here with all kinds of stupid info, but shit, I tore the label, so now I can't see it completely. But they talk just a little bit about what I mentioned, and that this is a legendary beer, and there's a signature from brewmaster John Tilson. But yeah, a classic brewery that was bought out. They had the coolest like bump clips with so much like ghouls and goblins kind of artwork, which kind of looked almost like Lord of the Rings-esque or something. I freaking loved it. It was very much fantasy labels. So very different, looks very modern, looks like nothing like it originally did, and like even the brewery logo makes me think of industrial beer, and I think it's the star. It makes me think of Heineken. But let's try and see, keep an open mind, see if it's good. We've also got like, so weird, they had all these cool names of different beers. Now everything is Hobgoblin. Hobgoblin Stout, Hobgoblin IPA, Hobgoblin Session IPA, Hobgoblin Gold, King Goblin. And then there's one or two other beers. They even did like Green Goblin, which was an oak-aged cider back in the day, which was a collab with a local cider maker. Which is like, man, must have been so cool to drink those things. Because there was a lot of it we didn't get in Denmark. Most was bottled stuff. Sporadically, we got a tiny amount of cask, but it was not often. It was actually only up until they were bought by Marston's, I think we could get cask. After that, it was done. And we actually got also a lot of, what was it, Breakspear? Was that? I think that was a brewery they bought. But yeah, so with me being very into English beer historically, this was of course also my jam. So I'm looking forward to this, seeing how it is. Pours somewhat what I remember. It's definitely a ruby colored ale in the glass. Had a fairly decent level of CO2 when I poured it out, and a frothy tan looking head. Let's check out the aroma on Wychwood Hobgoblin for the first time in years. Smells really freaking generic. It smells a little bit industrial. But it smells better than I remember. It smells a bit more full and rich. I've just rewatched snippets of that canned review of the canned version. And it smells a bit more rich. There's definitely toffee, chocolatey nuances. And there is a little bit of a dark, fruity yeast thing. I think it's dark fruits. It's a combination of dried dark fruits. Is a combination of often malt and yeast in English beers. And stewed fruitiness. Dates or figs or something, and toffee. It definitely smells better than the canned version, and it smells better than I feared. But let's try it. Cheers. That's actually not half bad still. Like, it's definitely better than what I had in the can. I don't know what was up with that can. It was just so terrible. But it doesn't have as much rich character that I remember. I remember this being a fairly rich beer for its ABV. It drinks kind of like a brown ale with more fruitiness almost. But a really nice toffee, toasty nuances to it, chocolatey, charry. Very much a beer-flavored beer, and very much a British-flavored beer. You have those very standout yeast characters that are really fruity and jammy and marmalade-y, almost like blackcurrant jam, paired with like a little bit of a crackery toffee note as well. And also a bit of robust breadiness, and the hop character in there. It's also unmistakably British, nickely, kind of spicy nuances. And that must be Fuggles. It's got a good amount of hops actually. It's got a decent hop character. Not loads, it's quite balanced with the malt. I'm actually enjoying this bottle a whole lot more than I thought. I would. I was so scared that this would be like a massive letdown. It's a fairly nice session beer. It's fairly well constructed. It's dry, but still has some fluffy fullness to it. But it's not like it. There's also something about it that feels a little bit dulled down in macro, just a little bit. And I'm wondering if it's just cutting costs or something. It's different, but it's definitely such a different beer than the cans. And I'm guessing it's because the bottles have been brewed at Wychwood and the cans have been brewed somewhere else. So that the people at Wychwood have been able to have a little bit of control. But I think it's such a shame to see a brewery like this go and be turned into such just a big corporate thing. It's just a brand now. And you can just also like all the marketing and the labels and everything, it just screams more like modern branded beer. Like these guys should have kept all their original artwork and stayed true to that style and kept the bigger range and all this, and maybe they wouldn't have had as tough of a time because they were a good brewery. Just think of someone like Samuel Smith that refuses to back down. Same style, same artwork, same recipes, classic English beer that's great and brewed to a T. Like you have brewers in Germany that's done that for hundreds of years, and they still do it the same way, and it works, and people like it. I mean, this is the closest I can get to getting really nice classic English styles these days, and I got it in Germany. I found a couple shops online in Germany that actually sell a lot of these classic breweries that are larger size that I drank back in the day. I thought about getting. They even had the Badger Ales, which is something I really want to revisit because that was one of my all-time favorites back then. It was the brewery that got me into beer. It was Badger, basically, because that was the first time I bought a beer that was in a macro lager. Where I was like, wow, can beer taste like this? And then just went full ham after that. So we can thank Badger Brewery for the master profits, basically. But I still think this is actually a fairly nice pint, and I would like to finish it, and I'm enjoying it. And it's a nice after work sipper. It's like quite refreshing, but it's also offering some complexity. It's never going to be a beer that modern beer geeks are going to be excited about, but traditionalists will probably enjoy it. And people who just enjoy like granddad style beers, or some people might call it, people that just enjoy beers that also taste like beer, I think this will be something that people will like a lot. I think this is something you almost have to be mature a little bit with flavor to enjoy. Like this is for people who also like, bitter drinks like coffee and dark chocolate and stuff like that. Like it's not like fruity, coconutty craziness like a lot of modern drinks. Not that I'm like, a lot of modern beer is very sweet and very over the top and very fruity, smoothie craziness and adjunct lat and stuff. And I think that's maybe detracting a little bit from this. But there's a point where you mature a bit and you start to look for these more mature flavors. And this has some of that. And I think that's why maybe I'm also enjoying it. There's even maybe small hints of tobacco, that blackcurrant marmalade, toasty, nutty notes, toffee, and then like a nice bitter nettly kind of finish to it, drying as well. Also bitterness from like roasty, malty notes. Maybe more toasty malt. But it's really nice to drink a beer like this again that really tastes distinctly British, which I've missed a lot. I have. These styles just are so hard to come by in Denmark these days. But yeah, I dig it, but I'm not over the top excited. I think I gave it in the 80s. Should we have a look? In the past, I think I was quite harsh on the canned version. So, beer review 58. Oh my lord, I don't know, you can't see that. Oh my god. I gave it a 70. Oh, that was harsh. But back then, I had no clue what I was doing in terms of grade. I thought 70 was a good grade. Well, technically, it's not that great of a grade. And then the canned version, I gave it 60. So I really dislike that. Well, I definitely like this glass of Ruby Bear more than a 70. I think that's too low. That's just like abysmal. This is not like, not abysmal. It's a decent beer, but it's something you probably wouldn't pick up again, right? Whereas this is definitely something I'd pick up again. I should have gotten 2 bottles so I could compare a batch that was dated differently. That was probably not brewed at Wychwood. But I'm going to go in the 80s, maybe 82.3 or something like that. Like, it's nice, but don't expect like the massive biggest flavor bomb of a classic English beer. I think It was maybe a tad more flavorsome and rich in the past, but it pretty much still ticks most of the boxes for these darker English ales, like a brown ale, or it's like a darker brown ale. It's or like a hybrid between like a bitter and a brown ale or something like that, because it's got a lot of brown ale notes, but it's also bitter and like hoppy. So it's kind of a bit of its own thing. Maybe that's why they market it as a ruby beer. But I think that's also been a bit of a UK market trick, where a lot of people, they just slam stuff on the labels. Well, London Pride, I think they called it. Did they call that a ruby beer as well, or something else? But yeah, this was fun to revisit. I like it. This is the highest grade I've given Wychwood Hobgoblin, which is silly. But again, take the old grade, like my old reviews. I think you should always also take with a bit of grain of salt. Like a lot of in the beginning, I was very new in beer, and like I was just doing it on a whim, and I wasn't taking things like with grading too seriously. I was like, I guess 70 is around a 7 on the Danish grading scale. I think that was something like that. I thought 70 at least was good. From 70 and up was very nice. So most reviews back in the day was like 70s, 80s. It was rarely that beer broke 90, which is different nowadays. But yeah, I think it's nice. I'm gonna enjoy finishing this pint. So yeah, Hobgoblin Ruby. Still okay, but not exactly as good as I remember. So if you guys, at least the bottle version, the can was not great at all. But if you guys had a chance to try Hobgoblin in recent time, let me know what you thought of it. I'm looking forward to be trying King Goblin and the IPA and see how they fare. So if you had it, let me know. As always, remember to comment, subscribe, check out the Facebook fan page, and Twitter and Instagram. Give this video a thumbs up, enjoyed it, and ring the bell for future notifications about videos. And this was a long video, sorry for that. But I'm going to say cheers anyways, and see you guys in another Throwback Thursday. Thursday. God damn it. Cheers.